My name is Adrian Wooten. I am council president for the City of Orange Township. Welcome to the City of Orange Township. Welcome to this seminar. What we are going to do, since we have an intimate crowd here, it's going to be a kind of open kind of session thing. I think that's what Christian said. So you'll get to speak to someone about life insurance and title and buying a home, and there's probably a banker here, and I think got credit means that he can talk to you about your credit and all of those type things. Mayor Warren will be popping in and out. He has something going on at the high school, and maybe that's where a lot of people are at the high school. There's something with parents today. It's a big resource kind of thing, but that's good, but we're glad that you're here. Because it's a lot of important information here, and as you may know, owning a home is probably one of the biggest and best things that you can do as far as an investment property, as far as leaving things to your children and your children's children. I laugh when I say that because I think sometimes our children's children, they don't be caring about stuff that we care about sometimes. and like for example, my dad had a best friend that had a barbecue business in Greensboro, North Carolina, a fantastic barbecue business in Greensboro. It was near the University of North Carolina A&T. He bled that barbecue business. His son bled that barbecue business. When the grandson came, guess what he did? Sold it. Sold it, because he didn't care anything about it. So here is your grandfather and your father's legacy just gone. And that's even about some of the homes. Like I live in an older home. My home was built in 1907. I'm a realtor as well, so when I started showing my daughter homes, she didn't want nothing that was 19. She wanted new, she wanted sweeping, she didn't want to clean up, she didn't want to build walls. But what she ended up doing was buying a fantastic home in East Orange. And it is where, she still has the walnut wood in certain places. She still has the original tile in certain places. Some of the weird lamp posts, we don't even know what they are. We don't even know if they work. We think oil has something to do with it. But I'm glad she decided to keep those things because she wants her home to have character. And I'm not saying that the newer homes don't have any character. I'm a traditional person. I like the old stuff. We have a fantastic, phenomenal board here. Ask them any questions. They are well versed and well knowledgeable on anything buying a home. I'm gonna step aside and let you, I guess, the people that are here, I guess you can really determine how the conversations are gonna go, basically with your questions. So we have a really good crowd where you have a really good space to ask some really good people, really smart people, some interesting things about homes. So I'm gonna dip out. I'm gonna turn this over to Christian Soto. He is like a son to me. He sold my daughter her home. He was her mortgage broker. So big up to Christian. He was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely knew the product. We were totally blessed to have Christian in her home buying process. But I'm going to turn everything over to Christian, and I'm going to get out of your way. But welcome to Orange. Have some food, and don't let this be your last time. Any of you. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good one.
So as Councilwoman said, we're going to tailor everything towards you and your needs, any questions you might have, any topics you want to discuss. We have a panel that kind of consists of every part of the home buying process here. So we do have financial services with Darwin at the end there. We have a realtor with Maria here in the middle. Myself as a mortgage lender. We have credit in case something happens with me. Jose can help you out there. We have an attorney with Carolina. Mohammed does home insurance and other types of insurance as well. Sonia helps with the title and the deed of the home and things like that to search and make sure the property is good. And we have Al who does life insurance to help protect the big asset that you just purchased. So anything from there, that's kind of the process in which we want to go. We want to make sure that you financially are stable. So we'll start with Darwin at the end. And then if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to come in, jump in, and we'll be more than happy to answer for you.
Well, thanks so much for the introduction. Good afternoon, I guess, everybody. Are we out at this point now? Good afternoon? Okay, sure. Thanks again, Councilwoman, for the introduction. Thank you for having us here. We're all proud to be here as well to share our expertise. So my name is Darwin Roman. I work with a financial planning firm called ARC Wealth Solutions out of Edison. And some of the functions that we do are talking to clients about just setting up their financial future in general. One of the things I think that really ties into the conversation today about the home buying process that most of us, hopefully, we have retirement accounts. Some of those retirement accounts are eligible with regards to assisting you in the down payment of buying a home. Now, before I get too deep into that, understand there's a lot of rules into that, so we're not going to go into them today because there are some tax questions and implications that could lead into your decision-making process with regards to using your retirement account to buy a property. But to let you know on a higher macro level, you are eligible to tap into either your 401k, or for those of you who work for a municipality or let's say, or a pension-based company or a labor union, for example, your defined benefit plan will have some provisions that you could use those pension dollars also for home purchase. However, again, there's a lot of different rules that go within those, and there's also on the individual side, individual IRAs, also known as self-directed IRAs. Also, if you're a small business owner or solo 401k, you will have the ability to use those funds to buy your first property or possibly an investment property. So, but again, taking a step back, is that when it comes to those type of questions, a tax professional would be advisable with regards to counsel. However, today we're just going back and forth in conversation. If anything comes up, by all means, ask us questions. All right, we're here to talk. But if you're looking for more information besides that, because every story is individual, we can always meet with you one-on-one and do a consultation. Is that fair to say to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't mean to take over here. I'm just trying to help guide the situation, guide the conversation. But one of the things I will say, stories, and I was going to touch on this right now to kick it off.
Sure.
One of the things that is very overlooked, and we had a conversation before with the gentleman with life insurance, and we talked about this, and also with the attorney that's here. One of the things about the financial checklist, I would say, about getting your documents in order. A last will and testament. One of the most unsexiest things probably to talk about right now, but a last will and testament, so important. So I'll give you a story. I'm working with a client right now that, and this is the financial checklist, right? Some of you may have a significant other, domestic partnership, or even married. Make sure, and maybe this could be, by the way, nothing wrong with that, could be your second marriage, right? Understand that you have to look at who's beneficiaries on everything. Your life insurance, your 401k, your pension, your bank accounts, because that's where this story ties in. Now, my clients, not to say this is all culturally irrelevant, because it kind of is, the wife is from Honduras, husband, unfortunately husband, Dominican. Now, I'm Ecuadorian. I grew up in a very Ecuadorian household, old school. Sometimes the men don't necessarily speak to the women about their finances, and vice versa, right? Which, if you have a spouse, please talk about this conversation. We had a conversation with him years ago. One of the people of our office did put life insurance on this gentleman, and but then later on, 6 years later, he passed away, not knowing that there were some other accounts in existence. Mm-hmm. So during the process, he was terminally ill. They're getting the finances in order because the spouse, she's like, I don't think this is going to go well, which unfortunately didn't go well. He got diagnosed terminal in October 2023. July of this year, he passed away. So the doctors, unfortunately, were extremely right. They go from bank to bank, credit union, put her name's information as a beneficiary, perfect. They go to TD Bank, and they sit down, and I'm pretty sure it has the same experience at Bank of America or Chase, sitting down, and they kind of look at you and looking at the screen, and they go, sir, you got these dollars in here, it's not really doing much for you. And she's like, what dollars? She's like, oh, these dollars. She flips the screen this way, and it's $300,000 cash in an account. She goes, and you're going to tell me this when? He said, no, it's for us, for you. She's like, but I need to know about this stuff. They leave. He gets worse.
Surprise, by the way.
What's that?
It's a great surprise.
Great surprise. However, the downside of it was that he does pass away. They never settle that up. Now, she's going through the probate process to get access to those $300,000. That takes about 9 months. However, a last will and testament could have provided a solution for that. So now she's struggling to try to figure that out. Not ironically, truthfully, and by virtue of a life insurance plan that he did have, That plan got paid very quickly. So that came in first. As advisors, we looked at his old retirement plan because then also unfortunately his last days, he happened to say, oh, and by the way, I do have a 401k plan. She was like, when were you gonna tell me this? Again, so we step in and we help to facilitate the rollover so she can inherit that IRA. And thankfully that worked out. So the IRA plan was rolled over easily, the life insurance policy paid out quickly, but because of the lack of this last will and testament, she's still in talks with TD Bank to get access to the big account there for $300,000. So if you walk away with anything today from what I said, please, yourself, or tell your loved ones, last will and testament. You just got married, update that. You just got a kid, update that. You just bought a house, update that. You changed jobs, update it. Every single life event changes, you gotta update those documents. So that's my part, but I know there's other stories here we want to
So
share.
let me just chime in on that.
Yes,
And in
yeah.
estate planning, when you're doing that, it's not that expensive. I think a lot of potential clients fear that, like when they go to a lawyer to do estate planning, it's going to be very expensive. It's really a flat fee. Usually lawyers tend to charge like between $1,200 to $1,800 to do 5 critical key documents for your last will and testament, power of attorney, healthcare directive. If you want to do more, because you want to save taxes and you're worried about certain inheritances to certain individuals, you can also do a trust. But really, if you just need those 5 documents for estate planning, it's not really that expensive. And you look at how much time, the time you're going to spend going to the surrogate court here in New Jersey and filling out paperwork and running around getting documentation. You save the time.
Agreed, because I'm sure my client would say she would gladly pay the $1,800 to get access to $300,000, right? I think it's an easy trade.
And I'd like to add to that too, on the title insurance aspect of it all. When you are trying to sell a home, because sometimes we want to sell a home for, maybe we're not protected, we don't have insurance, and 401k unfortunately, it does happen. Now you have to sell a home, and if someone's passed away, there is no last will and testament. You have to go to probate, and you have to wait to sell your home. So it's very, very important and very key for you to prepare a last will and testament and get your ducks in order before that transpires.
Yes, and especially when in Sonia's field where she's dealing with title, sometimes title may have been done incorrectly at the closing table. It could have been the fault of the attorney, it could have been the fault of whoever it may have been, right? But if you're trying to figure out, you're waiting on those proceeds, right? Or you want to sell the property, you have to have those documents in place.
Right.
If things are not done properly.
Yeah, just to tie in all of that to buying a home, I actually had someone who was supposed to be the beneficiary, but there was no will, so therefore the home of the deceased went to multiple people, and he was purchasing the home with his mother, but they were buying out her sister, so they had to use it as a full purchase and they couldn't refinance, so there had to be different types of programs that they could use. So although in their eyes they were just looking at it as, okay, I'm buying the home, I'm getting it from them, I already live here, I just want to refinance and give them the money they're due, they're actually, what they're doing is they're buying the home from the estate of the deceased person. So they're part of the sale and the buy and the purchase of that property. So.
And I think Carolina could address this. Everybody in the state of New Jersey has a will. You can either have the one you wrote, or you can have the one the state wrote. And by the way, the one the state wrote, you probably don't know.
I have a question. To do a will, do you need an attorney?
I would recommend that because each person's case is different. I mean, I don't handle wills particularly, but I know my colleagues who I refer those to. I mean, it really depends on, what are your assets? Who are going to be your potential beneficiaries? Maybe you have a problem with, your sister and you don't want to leave her something, or one of your children. Or maybe you don't like your spouse. There's rules, because there's rules with, marital distribution, as far as, the rights if you're married versus when you're not married. So you want to do, and there's a lot of tax saving, which I guess you were discussing before. There's opportunities for you to save if you have a lot of assets, 401ks, you know, many homes or something like that, you might want to look into talking to a tax professional or a financial advisor to see how to structure your estate, or maybe, you know, so that's really
Like for example, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have two questions. So going back to your story, when you were saying the wife didn't know about this, or the wife didn't know about, or I'm not gonna say wife, your partner didn't know about this, your partner didn't know about that. So say I'm been with someone for like 50 years and there is a 401k, like is there a way for a spouse or a partner to check to see if this actually exists?
Meaning if you're listed as beneficiary?
Right.
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 Technically, it falls on the person who owns that 401k or the account holder to be able to tell you whether or not. So for example, I couldn't necessarily say, okay, my wife works for Morgan Stanley, she's got a 401k. I can't call Morgan Stanley and say, hey, this is my wife's name. Am I beneficiary? They won't give me that information.
You may not even be able to find out if they have.
Right, oh, that too,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
They may, and most of them may say, well, yes, sir, we do have a plan for her, but I can't tell you whether or not you're a beneficiary.
Well, I'm not married. In fact, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not married now, but I can see why you may not want your spouse to be able to call and find out if you have.
Sure.
So I can definitely see why that could be something confidential. I can see why there'd be an issue if your husband or your wife could call and get any information at all, even to find out if it exists. I can see that. Well, I own a real estate brokerage, and obviously with the team of agents that I've been building, one of the things that I took pride in, I wish I could say that I opened my brokerage. It's been 2.5 years since I opened brokerage now, but I wish I could say that I started off with, with 15 top producing agents. I didn't. My first agents, I sponsored their real estate classes. So, so I literally started where it was just me and my partner. We were the only ones producing for the first 5 or 6 months. And my recruitment strategy was to recruit some of the newbies because I didn't want to have to break bad habits. I wanted to start from scratch and teach them right. Well, that came with its pros and its cons. The cons were that obviously I had a huge workload, of training, coaching, and showing everything. I was doing triple the work for a quarter of the money. And, but the benefit that came from that is that I feel like I have a team that's doing it all right. And so what I had to do though was I had to give them my portfolio of vendors. That these are the people who I use if you get somebody that wants to buy a house, this is who we predominantly use, for lending. Now, you're gonna meet some lenders out here. I'm not gonna tell you not to build relationships as an agent. You're an independent contractor by all means, but you don't know what you're doing. These are the ones that are taking care of me. So we got that. So in addition to that, my process was always somewhat seamless. When I had somebody that wants to buy a house, I connected them almost to everyone in the beginning. I'm gonna recommend you use an attorney for the legal aspect of this transaction. I probably say some things that are more assertive than that, and we won't say in this room, but I almost don't give them a choice. But we're not going to repeat that. So, and these are the attorneys that I highly recommend. Oh, you speak Spanish? Well, these two are the ones for you. Right. Whatever the case would be. So I also say, hey, let's talk about this early on. Once we find property that you like, you're going to end at the end of this process, you're going to need homeowners insurance. If you like, you can always call your car insurance company. That's what some people choose to do. But I actually have an insurance rep that I would like for you to at least, hear out, and she can give you these options. So I say that to say, and I can go on and on, but whether it's my agent or the client at the time, they're given almost this book of resources that you're going to use at some point throughout this transaction. My expectation, though, is that all of these vendors, because I'm not a salesman for any of their companies, if my client called me to ask me about where to send their paycheck stubs, my lender didn't do his job. That's not my job. I'm very strict on everybody doing what they're supposed to do. For liability purposes, I prefer not to see their Social Security. I need you to, handle that. So that's my preference. So with that in mind, you brought up the last will and testament, which is a piece to this puzzle that I've never put in my puzzle. But I can see why that's extremely significant, and I feel like I have a missing piece. But my expectation would be, who is it in this process would I need to make sure that my client is connected to, so that at the transfer of ownership of this property, if they're the buyer, whatever the case is, that we have someone to discuss with you how to make sure that this is properly protected.
So it would be the residential real estate attorney.
That
So
would be the
usually,
attorney.
that would be me. So usually I have this conversation at the closing table because when I have spouses, they go, if one of the spouses, because of lending, you know, and it traditionally would be, you know, the wife that may not be on the title because of the lending, for lending reasons, they always ask, one of the spouse, well, if I'm not on title, what happens if he or she dies? And then I explain to them in New Jersey, only in New Jersey, right, I can speak to, that in New Jersey by operation of law, if the and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you know, Sonia, that by operation of law, if you have that the person who says, you know, X is, you know, a married man or a married woman, and they own by tenancy by the entirety, title already knows that there is a spouse out there, okay? And by operation of law, when that person passes, they become the decedent. By operation of law, the surviving spouse gets the home. Now, of course, they're going to have to get the death certificate. But to protect them, usually that's like what he was saying, the state plan, right? That's the state law. But you don't want to leave things up to the state. You don't want to leave things up to chance. Therefore, when at the closing table, when we're doing the closing, I always bring up the death topic. I'm a lawyer. I'm used to this. I'm used to giving delivering bad news, right? Okay? You could say that's what they pay me for, right? And it's a great way at the closing table, or if the lawyer that you're working with is not having that discussion, maybe the discussion should be really you need to bring that discussion up or mention it to the lawyer. Hey, we should talk about estate planning at the closing table. Because that's the right time to have that conversation. Like, now you have this great home that you've purchased, you need to plan for your future. You know, you're going to leave this to your spouse, you're going to leave this to your kids. You know, what are you going to do to protect that asset? And what you need to know the distinction between, let's say, a life insurance policy or a 401k is that, you know, that is based on contracts. You know, you can designate, your paramour to receive the benefits of your 401k plan, but your spouse is going to actually get everything else if you have a will. People do that. I see it all the time. And you can't verify. And I've seen situations where the individual who owns the 401k plan sends into, let's say, Fidelity Investments, I want to designate A as the beneficiary, and the individual who owns that 401k plan doesn't verify that the change was made. And guess what? They pass, and the funds go to the first beneficiary.
Yes, I think that this is some powerful stuff. And like I said, while you're talking, I mean, obviously, in some capacity, we're all salesmen. So, I'm polishing up my sales pitch here for how this goes. But I know, I've probably sold 200 homes, and I don't know, 100 of them, they probably don't have a last witness testament, but I want to say 95% of them use attorneys. And so what that means is that this was not something that was suggested or highly recommended, because I think the percentages would be higher. It's not guaranteed. Just because you present it doesn't mean they're going to buy it. But I do believe that when it's recommended, the percentages do go up for how many people would. And I think, so I'm trying to figure out what can we do to increase the amount of people that actually have that. And it sounds like I should just sit with the attorney and we should discuss that. Hey, I'm not sure what other agents expect, but with my clients, I want us to make sure that we highly recommend that we consider this at the end. Now, at the closing table, I can see it being discussed to some degree, but once again, we discussed that there's some things that the husband might not want to talk about in front of his wife, and there's some things that the wife might not want to talk about in front of the husband. So I believe that in that process, that when you're speaking, hey guys, just so you understand, we're going to get you to attorney review, we're going to get you to the closing table. Shortly after the closing table, a part of my process is to have a consultation with the two of you separately. You can say that to them separately so that we can discuss, obviously, in addition to this, we want you to understand that your information is confidential even from each other, and we're going to discuss assets so we can update your wills at the end of the process. I'm thinking that even though I know it's an extra fee, my thoughts are on polishing up somebody else's sales pitch at this point.
You could do that. So I have to
You
could do that, because as a lawyer, I can't
do
say
that.
I can't.
That's what I was trying to
yeah. So if it's a couple, or there's 2 or 3 people that I'm representing at the closing table,
Right.
they're the buyer. I can't just split my loyalties. That's in violation of the ethics rules. So what I do is I introduce the conversation. I say you should do this because you have kids or you have loved ones. you should think about this. I give them at the closing table 3 potential referrals, like of 3
Okay.
different attorneys.
That's
I go,
good.
have 3 different attorneys. You call them up, ask them about their fees. You know, if you gel with them, great. If not, I'm happy to give you a list of other attorneys that you can potentially work with.
Yeah.
Because it's really, you know, most people don't want to have that conversation about death. It's a very difficult topic. And I just need to plant the seed and follow up with them and say, hey, did you follow up with that list of attorneys that I gave you?
I actually like that you said I should do that. I kind of like I'm trying to figure out how to get it done. Based on what you just said, what you did, you planted the seed. I don't know the real numbers, but I bet 90% of people leave there and they just don't do it. What you just said is wonderful. I got my keys. Let's get swept under a rug.
Or the title person can do it.
Somebody, how do you actually get it done? Because once they leave there with that keys and they take that picture and pop that champagne, calling somebody back to talk about what happens when I die does not happen. So it's like, what can we do to orchestrate that and almost make it a part of the process? Meaning, when we left this closing table, you're not done. Is Tuesday good for you? Like it's almost like what can we do to make that?
I think that to have a healthy conversation when you're first buying a home, right? Because the first person of impact is the realtor, right? So, you know, yourself. So congratulations, 2.5 years, you're making it. 3 years, you're there. Hold on to your seat.
I'm trying to get there, right?
So, but you know, it's good that you're having this thought process because I myself, when I'm doing title and I'm having to put people on the deed, take people off of the deed, or here I'm having a conversation with someone because probate, there's an issue. I have to have people sign inheritance, tax waivers, and you know, because we as title people have to do our jobs right, because if we miss something, especially when there's a probate issue or there's errors, they come after us and get sued, right? So, you know, when I have these conversations with the attorneys, because sometimes I'll call, especially in these type of situations, I'll call the buyer myself. And I'll say, hi, how are you? I'll introduce myself. I see that this is happening. Now, just to protect you, do you have life insurance? Do you have anything that is going to protect you and your family moving forward? They say no. I say, okay, I think that you should have a conversation with this person. You don't have to use it, but I think that for you to be in the right direction, I think that you should call this person and speak to them.
Absolutely.
And then sometimes at closing, if I have a closer or myself that I do closing sometimes still, because I love to still close, I'll speak to them too and say, hey, listen, here's like business card. Speak to them after and, get yourself situated, because having a home is the biggest asset that you can have, right? And you want to protect that asset, and you want to protect yourself from, God forbid, that anything can happen in life. We don't know. I could be here today and gone tomorrow. Yeah. Somebody can get sick and you just never know, right? Yeah. So you got to make sure that you dot your I's and you cross your T's. And then I'll just talk to the realtor and say, hey, listen, I had a conversation with your client. Maybe you want to just kind of like reiterate what's going on.
Yeah, let's work together to make sure that happens. Right. And obviously to help to orchestrate. This is really good for me. Sorry for
I feel like I took over. I think it's also too, just from a mortgage standpoint, right? Most people, when they're buying a home, a lot of people is going to be their first home. And if it's their first home, it's very overwhelming. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do for a living, that process is going to be overwhelming. So when they get to the closing table, I think that's a good time, but there's so much excitement, there's so much weight lifted off their shoulders that they're really not thinking and absorbing any additional information. And I know agents who, after the closing, maybe a week later or whatever it is, they'll go hang out, or even that same day, they'll go have dinner, celebrate the closing of the new home. And that might be a good time for you guys to introduce that topic, life insurance. You just bought this $500,000 house. What happens if one of you passes away because you're both paying the mortgage together, right? Or, if one of you passes away, all the 401ks, how is that going to be allocated? So that might be a good time.
You guys really challenge me on this, because I think I'm going to put it at the beginning though. I think that when I have the conversation with them about this is the process, you're going to go through attorney review, you're going to go through your inspection period, you're going to go through whatever, you're going to go through closing, and then right after closing, within a week or so, we're going to make sure that you're sitting down with someone. So if I set the expectation that they know this is what you're going to be discussing at the beginning of the transaction, when they get to the closing table, you don't have to get too deeply into the specifics, because they know you're going to have that meeting next week. And it's I think, because I love the idea, I guess when you brought that up. I have a question behind it too. Oh, sorry. It was a really great point.
So I just want to back up to, so we already at the closing table. So I do stuff like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to back up. I want to back up to credit, which is important. All of you are important, but credit, because that's the first thing whenever I'm going out talking to someone about a home. First thing they ask me is like, where does my credit go? Or how can I get this off my credit? And should I pay somebody $5,000 and they're going to erase everything for 30 days and I'm going to be approved for a house and then it's going to jump back on us? So that's one question to you. And then to the realtors, my husband owns a bankruptcy firm, but we also do real estate law. So, and I'm the person that answers the phone. And I've dealt with a lot of realtors, a lot. So I want to ask about realtors who are operating on both sides of the deal. Sometimes not necessarily. They don't give. They might give. Say it's a $600,000 home. This is just happening in the office. $600,000 home. One realtor, both sides of the deal, right? So when she calls, I have to ask her, like, who are you talking about? Is it Mr. A or is it Mr. B? And when I'm talking to her on the phone, I can tell her she's really caring about
More about
Mr. A than she is Mr. B. So I wanted to ask you your professional opinion, like, and when you said ethics, that's what brought it into my mind, and I'm just thinking, as a realtor, as a professional, as someone who sold many homes, hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, where do you stand on people being on both sides of the deal?
So that's an interesting question because it is a very slippery slope. What I normally do, once you're ready to purchase a home, right, and we'll go back to credit, sorry. Once you're ready to do this, right, we sit down, we go over everything. The first thing that I do, I don't jump out to show homes. We sit down, we have a buyer's consultation. Pretty much what we're doing here, I am going to do with the buyer, right? I'm going to also show you the documentation. One of the main things we have to give you by law is a consumer information statement. On there, it is very clear of agencies and what the dual disclose means, right? Dual disclose means you cannot treat one over the other. And that's where the problem comes in, right? Because I cannot tell, I've worked with the seller, I've come up with a price for the seller, now I have the buyer, now I can't tell the buyer what to offer, now so it is a slippery slope, it is. And it's challenging. Sometimes what you have to do is bring in your broker because you technically cannot represent both the right way, right? And so a lot of times it's really unfair. But if you have sat down with the consumer information statement and you've gone over the agencies, which you should before you start to look at homes. Like I said, I don't jump out and go looking at homes without doing any of it. I show you the contract so that when it comes time to sign it, you already understand it. All those forms have to be done. And it's always been by law we have to do it.
Sure.
It's not something that has come up and we have to. Most agents, unfortunately, go out, start showing homes, then sit down with you and go over the documents, right? So that's one. The other problem you have is now things have changed. Laws have changed. We now have seller disclosure. They have to. It used to be an option. By law, it has to be done, right? So sellers must disclose what is wrong with the property. Like I have a leak in my kitchen right now. I'm trying to figure out what it is. If I go to list a house by next week, I have to disclose there's a leak there, right? So now you're aware whether you want to take on the problem or you want me to fix it, it should be disclosed. We've also have a new law when it comes to commission. So all that needs to be disclosed and it's all based on documents. That's why primarily the best thing to do is to sit down with the buyer. I was a previous owner in a brokerage and we always thought the agents do it. Do they listen all the time? Not necessarily.
Nope.
But this is why you've got to teach them. They're like, from the beginning. Bring them in. Don't be so quick to run and go show a home because they might not even be qualified. They might need the credit. They might need the lender. They might have a program that they don't fully understand. There's first-time home buyers programs now that'll give you up to $25,000 as a down payment. They're usually a little bit higher in interest rate, and primarily you need to stay in your home at least 5 years, right? So now if you're not aware of all these little things, you're gonna wanna buy it and be out in 2 years, and you can't. So it's important to have that conversation, and truth be told, you can't work with everybody, right? You can't meet everybody's expectations. I know when somebody comes to me after 4 or 5 years of looking for a home, and it's always the realtor's fault.
It's always.
We always take the blame, regardless. When things are going good, but when things go bad, it's the realtor's fault, right? So if from 4 or 5 years you have not found your ideal home, I probably will not be able to give it to you. So I've been a realtor, broker realtor now since 2000. In 24 years, I have learned to pick my battles. I know what I can do, I know what I won't do, right? So one is I'm always about documentation, I'm always about full disclosure, and I'm always about being honest. Because at the end of the day, how do you build relationships if you don't have them, right? And yes, this is a great panel here, but also by law, I have to give you 3 attorneys, 3 home inspections, I have to give you options, right? Well, I would love for you to use the people that I know that I can work, because I can call Sonia herself at 11 o'clock at night. I can call him at 10 o'clock at night, right? Because we have built that relationship. I can get it done.
And it has happened, by the way.
Wait. And being the realtor is the one that coordinates everything. To be honest, right? We coordinate everything. If you call me and you tell me, always be honest, always tell me, because no matter what it is, it can be fixed. There's always a solution for it. Rarely is there something that we cannot do, right? Once you tell me what's going on, then I know who to connect with. I know who's going to help us, right? And so it's best to always be upfront with what you have. And documentations are key. Our business is run on documentation. It's always going to be. Don't look at what you read, what you're going to sign. Be very careful. If you're not sure, ask. And it's much easier that way.
Your realtor is like the point guard. Like if you like basketball, which I do, and I'm a USC Chapel Hill fan, so if there are any state fans here, or Duke fans, I don't know, you kind of got on that blue end. But the point guard is the realtor. And if I'm purchasing a home and my realtor does something that I don't like, can I call my broker? Can I call the broker on the realtor?
I think that's the other thing that I don't. While we are working with you, the head boss is the broker. Any questions, any problems, any complaints is the broker. After that becomes a real estate commission. And a lot of people don't understand that they have that option, right? We never want, this is why I don't work with people I know I cannot help, because the last thing I want after 24 years of doing this is to have my name, as a complaint to the real estate commission. Other than paying for my license, I don't want them to know that. Because that's not how I operate.
So let me stop before we go to credit. Mayor Warren just walked into the room, and I want to let you know we did turn the heat up too. As you know, he's the mayor of the city of Orange Township. He is the reason that we do so many things in the city of Orange Township. He is someone that will answer your phone like you. So he will answer my phone call at 11 o'clock at night, or my text messages about crazy ideas or anything like that. He is someone who is truly for the people. You can roll up on the mayor anytime, day or night, and he's going to talk to you. He gives out people his personal telephone number. He gives people my personal telephone number. I see attorneys' personal telephone numbers. So even though we have city phones, people have our personal numbers, because the mayor is a personable kind of person, and he's all about doing and informing people of things that we need to be informed with in the city of Orange Township. So I just want to thank the mayor for coming in and ask the mayor if there were any questions or concerns. We're going to talk about credit now.
Yes, I like that kind of credit.
If there are any concern or anything that you want to say to the group, we have some people here that are probably interested in buying homes. We have some realtors here in the audience, so we have a variety of people here, and we have this professional panel here.
I do want to thank the councilwoman for for having this. These are the kind of things that are going to enroot our community with people that care about it. Buying homes is one of the best things we can do. It's certainly we need this event at this time. Both the councilwoman and I, we work for Christian all the time.
Yes, we do. We do.
But I would like you to figure out how we address this issue. I buy my house today, and all of my numbers are whatever they are in terms of my assessment. I move in next week, and my assessment goes up $30,000, $10,000, whatever it might be. How do we address that? Do you guys ever get a warning for it to come? What can we do to give some kind of forecast that might happen to a potential buyer?
Mortgage standpoint, one thing that I always look out for is what the real estate taxes are, especially in the area in which the person is looking to buy, right? Doing it for so long, you eventually get an idea as to what taxes should be for a certain type of property in a certain area. And if the taxes are low, it's for a reason. Usually there are tax abatements that go out. Sometimes it's just a property that was taxed low because it was not taken care of. So someone comes in, purchases it, redevelops it up, makes it look nice, and sells it. Their taxes are eventually going to go up because now the property is being assessed at the new value for the new money that was put into it. The person selling the home wants to get out as quickly as possible because they want to make as much as possible, and they don't want to get hit when that assessment comes.
Right.
So I warn people when they're purchasing something that's been newly renovated, hey listen, your taxes are kind of low, can we make sure what the taxes are going to be? I'll work with the realtor, we'll work with title, try to figure out what the chain of custody was, because then you can kind of get an idea and just forewarn them, hey, this is what's coming in the future. Your taxes more than likely are going to go up, but because of recent renovations, it's probably going to be a lot. So we kind of want to make sure that you're not overstepping by purchasing this now, and we want to make sure that you're going to be able to not only afford the home today, but afford the home in 10, 20, and 30 years when the taxes do go up. So we want to make sure you're comfortable not only being pre-approved for $500,000, but that you can make that monthly payment comfortably and not have to live check to check.
Thank you. To all the homeowners who are here and the ones that are listening out in Radio Land, that's an important aspect on which you should choose a mortgage person, because it gives you the total picture of what you're going to need, not just making the sale today and moving on to things.
How do you quantify that? So, that was a great question. How do you quantify it in the sense, because obviously on the real estate side, we're dealing with buyers who are thrilled that, I mean, you got 10 houses on this block and 8 of them, 5 on this side and 4 on this side are all like crazy high taxes. And I found the one house that's got good taxes on this block.
Right.
And that is precisely the reason why they want to make their offer.
But if it's been renovated, this is why full disclosure is very important. If it has been completely
those taxes are
renovated,
going to change.
I would call the town, right?
Yeah, right.
Now we know for a fact it has not been, the taxes, the taxes, the 8,000 that you're looking at right now is going to be probably, say, 18,000 now, right? Because of the renovation. So now you have to try to do your best. You're never going to get the right number because the town can't give it to you until they assess it. So it's same as doing a market analysis.
And our clients will hit
right?
our guts if we initiate the assessment today.
The problem is that it's going to happen.
Right,
so
exactly.
I can't prevent it, and the only thing, it's always better for you to know it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
So the other house that is somewhat in comparison to you, the taxes are this. This is probably where your range is going to fall. And it's like anything. There's no foolproof. There isn't.
And as a lender,
but
you
it's coming.
them.
It's coming.
Oh yeah, this is really good. As a lender, would you because I know you guys as clients have $500,000 above their approval. They're buying cheap houses when they can afford more. But my clients are buying at the top of their buying power. Like, so, I mean, if I got a client that's approved for $600,000, trust me, they are texting me Zillow ads for one that was $650. and so they're already buying at the top of their buying power, and it may be at the top of their buying power with the taxes that we all know are going to go up. So, as a lender, like, I mean, do you, with that forewarning, hey, this is probably going to go up, do you try to base their pre-approval Like, because they might not even be qualified to buy this house.
So, the unfortunate part of it is we have to go based on what the tax record is.
Correct,
Not
right
what
now,
it's going
right.
to be, right? So your pre-approval is gonna be based on the number that it currently is.
Correct.
But that's part of the conversation that I'm having. Like, hey, you're pre-approved for 650,000.
Are you gonna be
Can
okay
you
with those?
afford 650,000? Just because I told you that you could doesn't mean that you can. I'm only looking at what comes up on your credit report.
And can
I'm
you
not-
afford it when it's, right now it's 650 with 10 in taxes, but
And
it's about to be 15?
Right.
think that's the other
But
important
then-
thing to understand, is just because you're pre-approved for an X amount does not mean you
Doesn't mean you can
have to
afford it.
use the whole amount, because you're gonna estimate what your monthly payment will be, right? And your rate on your mortgage doesn't lock in until after the appraisal. So the rate that is today, let's say it's 6%, right? And by the time you go after your appraisal and it's ready to lock in, let's say it's 6.5, that's what you're gonna get, right? So you always wanna make sure you're never fully spending everything on a mortgage, because there's always gonna be repairs on the home, there's always a leak somewhere, there's always something. You always wanna have something there, right? If there's a landscaper you're gonna pay, or you're gonna cut tax. There's always something you have to do. So you have to always be really careful as to what you can spend. And once you make that decision, it's also important to know that if you want to say you're pre-approved for 650, and now you want to only look for $400,000
Right.
in the certain town. In that town, if we can't find it, we might need to switch towns, and it's based on taxes, right? So I will always say to you, well, it would be pretty to show you this house because it's brand new. Taxes will be going up. We don't know what they are, so if you can and you're at the top end of your mortgage, you're not going to be able to. It's pointless, right?
Yeah.
And I have that conversation. I know they don't like me sometimes, but it's the truth. You're gonna not have the money to pay the mortgage,
Well,
and then who will
is
you
one-
blame at that point?
I guess my question was
I
about
would-
quantifying it. It was about quantifying it, because I think we're all in agreement that based on this question, there's a conversation that has to be had with the client, like, this is what this is now, and yes, I can help you get this, but
Anytime
are
you
gonna
have
be
a
able to
new
afford it?
construction, anytime you have either a new construction, because it hasn't been done yet,
Mm-hmm.
or an updated. And there's new construction everywhere right now. There's-
So we're
there's-
saying the
there's-
solution for it is simply in educating the client. on
You
this.
have, yes.
So-
There's no way really to quantify it and to
So-
help prevent that.
And on the title aspect, when we get to the point of closing, right? When we have probably a possible new development, right? Or a renovated home, right? And they know this, they're aware,
Right.
right? I've had this happen already a couple times. But we're in the middle of buying a home. This guy is buying, let's say 650, right? Now, we know with the renovations, the taxes are now at, let's say, 12,000.
Right.
They're already told that they're going to go up, right? So my job, I have to call the tax office and say, hey, listen, tax assessor, what are we doing? Is this gonna go up, or how much? Can you give me an idea? Do we have to hold escrow? How much is the escrow, right? At that point, they may or may not know. We might get lucky, we might not. It's like, we don't know because they don't know, right? Because they have to do their protocols as well, right? And so in this case, they knew. So it was going up to $21,000 from what they were paying. So I had
From what to
to
21?
from the taxes.
From what? What was the starting?
Wow.
Oh, it was 12.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, because they did renovations in the area, it was pretty predominant, so everything went up and down.
They do.
So, yeah, they
But
had.
at least they knew.
Yeah, but they knew. So this is one of the cases where they knew. Sometimes you don't know, right? But I think these were the cases that we knew, and this is what we had to do. They already knew that their next quarter, their next monthly payment, and their mortgage, and their taxes was gonna go up. They knew this. So, I mean, you have to be prepared for these type of things, because depending on the house that you buy, and the taxes, right?
Yes.
And the insurance, because that's also a factor as well, right?
And how recent the renovations were.
Right, correct. And you want to make sure, that you have that buying power. And like Maria said, you don't ever want to buy your house at that pre-approval factor. Like, oh my God, 650, I'm going to go for that. No, because there are things, you want a cushion. You want to be comfortable. And I always tell clients, you never want to be house poor, right? You want to make sure that you can live and you can you can afford your monthly payments, because there's other things that to factor in your life, right? But back to the situation with the assessments, we were able to kind of allow them to say, hey, listen, you still want in or out, right? Because at this point, that's a huge, significant jump. So they did. So, I mean, we did the closing and we escrowed money, so they could pay for the next quarter, and everything went up. Their monthly payment, everything went up, but they were okay with it. So, in some cases, you're able to find out prior to closing, and sometimes they'll find out after.
Right.
So it's a kind of a process.
So like what she said, circling back to kind of what both Maria and Sonia said, right? If your team takes that extra step for you, and this is, as the client, we work for you. Even though we're working with you, we work for you. You can elect to, hey, I don't want Christian as my lender anymore because he didn't go over X, Y, and Z. I asked him this question and he didn't have the answer. And not only did he not have the answer, he never tried to get it for me, right? So even though I don't know all the answers, my job is to try to get them for you or to let you know that we don't have a solution for that question. So that way you can make all of the proper decisions in your process. So getting that team behind you that's going to take that extra step and say, hey, when were the taxes last assessed on this property? How much do we anticipate them going to increase?
It eliminates a lot of liability on us.
Exactly.
Well, that's a great point. We do have a lot of liability. And it's why a lot of times now that we're being told that the client should make that phone call. Because I'm making the phone call right now. If there's this or that, I'm passing that information to you. But what if they make a mistake and give me the wrong number? What if the town, right? So then the problem becomes to how do we approach it? But I normally will, like I said, I'll sit down. If you're telling me the highest you can go is your $8,000 for taxes,
Right.
that's it. Then it would be pointless for me to show you that pretty home that I just know got renovated, and the taxes are probably going to be $20,000.
Well, then, so, and unfortunately, that's exactly the home that they're gonna text you a Zillow link from.
That's okay.
And,
I know. That's okay.
And so,
It's coming.
what you said, the liability thing that we're talking about is actually, I think this is great, so.
That's why we
and
can't
it was something
request.
that-
That's why we can't request Oprahs anymore.
Correct, and it was something that they.
We can't do what?
We can't request Oprahs anymore.
The
We'll find out
Open
if
Public
there's any-
Records Act.
Right. We can't do that anymore. We used to.
Hold on,
Oh, you
let
can-
me-
oh, you have
I can
to
explain.
climb.
Hold on.
Yeah, and that was something we could offer the buyer, but we can't do that anymore.
Let's hear that out. There was a point in time where, as part of your service, you provided drafting an Open Public Records Act with the town
Right.
to get all that information and pass it on to your client.
Right.
What changed?
So that was I think that was it was a NAR or Real Estate Commission change.
I believe that was a real estate.
And when?
So that was, I think, there was a case, there was a lawsuit,
Right.
okay, where the agent, I read the case that the agent requested the OPRA, which is, just to educate folks if they don't know what it is, an Open Public Records Act is a request to the municipality of all documents that pertain to that piece of property. So if there are permits open, if there, I don't know, if any environmental issue concerning the property, anything, a flood, any documentation pertaining to that property, you can get all that. The lawyer or, if you're the buyer, potential buyer, you can get that. Agents used to request that. The problem in this particular case is that the agent requested it, didn't review it, didn't see what was contained in the document, and that is why it's left to either a potential buyer to review that document or the attorney. So I do this for all my transactions, whether I'm representing the buyer or I'm representing the seller, right? I always do the Open Public Records Act. I review it, and I review it with my client so that they understand what's going on. Sometimes it's very simple. All the permits were obtained and they were closed. Sometimes it reveals that some permits were, opened and they weren't closed, and we find out that the seller didn't do X, Y, and Z. And then that's a conversation I need to have with the seller's attorney. So it's really important for lawyers to do that for liability purposes, or the actual consumer that's potentially buying that property.
So now we're not doing that, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's very important in situations like that, not to give concrete answers,
Yes.
but just to set proper expectations. Like, one question as an insurance broker, one question I get is, can you give me a general idea of how much the insurance is gonna cost on this home? I'm never, ever, ever gonna do that, no matter how hard they push. I'm going to have them run the full quote with me, because you can quote the same person on two different homes and the same person in two different homes get two completely different rates. You can quote the same home on two different people and get two completely different rates. Also, as part of my sales process, when I go through the sales process, I do a very thorough discovery. Is there an oil tank? Is it above ground? Is it below ground? As we're going through it, I don't even know what the rate's gonna look like yet, but as soon as they say one of those factors exists, I'm going to pause in that moment and say, this is an eligibility factor. This is one of the factors that could drive up the rate. It could be one of those situations where I can't offer you the best rate that comes up because that carrier won't accept this factor about the home. So it's gonna end up me just offering you the best option with the carrier that will accept all things considered. So I'm kind of setting that expectation along the way. So when I come at the end of the quote and it's $4,000, they're not shook because along the way, I literally created that whole list of things that are going to affect that premium at the end, and it makes sense out of it for them. And if for a second they forgot that whole list and they say, why is it so high? We're gonna go through review and I'm gonna go through that whole list again and explain why it's so high. And I think as mentioned prior on the panel too, it is important to have those professionals that will go above and beyond. It is important to have that realtor that's going to explain all of those things to you or mention that, oh, your home has a flat roof. That is an eligibility factor. The insurance might have an issue with that and might result in higher premium. It is, you do want that mortgage broker or that lender that's going to set a realistic expectation on the estimated premium, knowing all the factors.
Sure.
Because there are some lenders that will estimate the same premium for every home, but every home's not going to be rated differently.
Right.
If a client has a bad financial score, their insurance is going to be higher. If they're buying a multifamily home and it does have a flat roof and it does have an oil tank, or you know your client has a Rottweiler, you are not going
In a
to
floodplain.
Yeah, exactly. You're not gonna, you're not gonna calculate that same estimated insurance for that individual like you would everybody else.
So vagueness decreases your liability, and being too specific
Yeah.
definitely increases it. When you brought, and tell me your name again, Fred.
Maria.
Maria, sorry about that. So, Maria, when you use the word liability a little while ago, it definitely triggers something, because I can imagine if the realtor is the one who makes the call to the assessor, as we were talking about, whether it's true or not, if the assessment happens shortly afterwards, the accusation that we prompted the assessment could shortly follow. So I could imagine that as much as I want to go over and above, when you said maybe we need to let the client make that call, so the point of this is that we want to educate the client on the possibility, because the renovations happened recently, there's a strong possibility that your taxes are going to increase from what they currently are. I recommend that you call the tax assessor to see if you're able to get an estimation of what your tax will be to determine if you can afford it. Because if we take the liberty of making the call for them, and shortly afterward the assessment actually takes place, the accusation that we prompted the assessment that's a liability that I could see being a significant issue.
So similar to something with the taxes, right? So something that I do, I run credit reports for people. I have to look at the credit report to see what's on there. I get asked every single transaction that the customer has shaped credit, what can I do to increase my score?
Right.
And I say, I can't tell you because I'm not a credit specialist, but I can refer you to somebody. Because if I tell them, oh, well, if you pay XYZ, then your score should go up to here. Oh, well, why is it only going to go up 4 points? I don't know, that's just what the computer told me. But Jose will be able to say, okay, if you did this, it's because it's targeting this, right? So it's the same with the tax assessor. If you let the customer call the tax assessor themselves, then they can ask, okay, well, why is it going up so much? The house next door's taxes are only this number. Why is this one $3,000 more? They can get into their own
And if
questions,
this
right?
assessment, if the actual assessment takes place shortly afterwards, we've eliminated our liability to them. I mean, the truth is we didn't prompt it, but that's not how they would see it. So the fact that we made that call, some client, I can imagine some clients saying, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it, and they would prefer not to wake up that sleeping giant. And based on what all of you are saying, which I agree with completely, prompted by this question from our great mayor, is we need to make sure we educate the client on the fact that that's coming. So it's not a surprise.
Yeah, but in addition I think a part that's missing is the client has a responsibility. Now, one of the first, when you're talking about all the questions that have been asked, you're really talking about questions that lead to their ability to get a mortgage. Okay? If you get a
When you
house,
say client has responsibility, what's that?
so we're gonna get there. Okay? If a client buys a house, how long does a client expect to have the house? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. We know that sometime in that process, things are gonna change. Things are gonna change with property taxes, things are gonna change with repairs, things are gonna change with the client.
Employment.
And a perfect example is a guy I know has a wife, and she's expected. She works. She's part of qualification.
Change
Now,
in 9 months.
I'm going to tell you my experience. My wife had my first son. She stayed home for 6 months and said, I don't want to go back.
Things change, didn't they?
Things change. So the question is not, do you have the responsibility to make certain that it fits today? The client has a responsibility to do the planning for themselves on a financial level. So one of the things, Justin, one of the things I'm going to send you next week, I will send you a worksheet that I do that's a financial planning worksheet that allows a person to put everything that they have and figure out what they got, and then you can change the numbers around. But they have to have the responsibility. I will also tell you this. Back somewhere in the 80s, they decided to open all the doors so everybody could buy a house. Okay? And people who couldn't afford to buy houses bought them. How long did they keep them? I know people that had them for 3 months. So the real question here is, what's our responsibility as professionals? What's the client's responsibility? Because they're responsible for it, not us. I'd also tell you, when I bought my first house, I did it all. And I actually found out with the house. I found the house, I found the mortgage for the house, I worked out everything to the closing, and I had my attorney do the closing, but other than that, I did it all. So I understand what responsibilities can be. Most people will not do that, but they have to have a responsibility.
That's why I asked the question, and it goes back to, none of this can start, none of this without credit. People always say, what is your credit score? What does my credit score have to be? Can I use my boyfriend's credit score? Can I use my mom's credit score? You can't even imagine the questions that I've heard about credit. And like I said before, I've heard people say, oh, I paid this credit company. They're going to get rid of everything for about a month or two. And then when I get my home, all this stuff is going to come back on my credit report. So could you speak to that?
Yep. So thank you for having me, by the way. Appreciate it. I know Maria reached out to me, so I'm glad to be here. I always look at credit as one of those things. By the way, my name is Jose Rodriguez. On Instagram, I'm the credit dude, and I own a company called Got Credit with my wife. She's the boss. That's why she's at home, and I'm here working. You know? So the thing is credit is kind of like multifaceted, right? It can either help you make money, it can help you save money, it can help you generate money, or it can help you lose money. You know, luckily I'm a veteran. I bought my house. I don't pay property taxes, so you know I'm 100% disabled. So it's one of the benefits. You know, when you guys talking about taxes, it's crazy. Like that, a lot of people have to deal with that. Interest rates with mortgages, interest rates with insurance. I always tell people that come to me when they want to buy a home, and I either get referred by a lender, or I find them on the street, or I find them on Instagram, and they say they want to buy a home and they got a 580 credit score, they got a 600 credit score, they got a 700 credit score. I said, listen, how much money you got in the bank? Because listen, at the end of the day, multifaceted, right? It goes hand in hand. A lot of the reasons why people have bad credit, typically I've been doing this 14 years, is either you have loss of revenue when it comes to your money, right? So either you lost money, right? These are the reasons why people have bad credit. You lost money along the way, and you couldn't pay your bills, you couldn't make ends meet, whatever the case is. You just don't care, right? And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that don't care. There are a lot of people, you know what, man, I don't care about my credit, I don't care about I do it in cash, whatever the case is. Or you just don't have the information that you need in order to catapult you to the next level so you can use your credit to help you make money. Sure. So what I always say is, you know, the gentleman that was speaking about life insurance, talking about like, you know, you have a kid and you want to stay home. The great thing is you could always make more money. Now, if you put yourself in a position to where your credit is always good, you could always make money with credit. And the thing is, there's Turo, there's Airbnb, there's a lot of things you could do to help you generate money. I would always say, if you're gonna buy a home and your credit score is 580, 520, don't do it. Because there are programs where you can buy a house 500, 580, what the case is, but typically there's something that's happening on your credit report that's generating the 580, which is what? Late payments, charge-offs, collections. So yes, somebody might be able to delete it for a little bit, but then when you buy your home, you can get a you can get a lien, you can get a judgment, you can get a wage garnishment. So I always say is, I bought my house, I don't plan on leaving. You know what I mean? I plan on staying there till the day I die because I don't pay property taxes. So truly, when I pay my house off, it's paid off. So I know that in 10 years, I'm still gonna have a Capital One payment. I'm still gonna have a car payment. I'm still gonna have certain things. So if you're able to understand that when you buy a home, it's not, let me just get approved for 6 months. It's, hey, let me see what I can get approved for the next 10, 15 years. So let me put my mindset into where, okay, do I have a business? No, let me start one. Why? Because an LLC is the easiest way to legally hide debt. Because if you have a car in your business, if you have credit cards in your business, if you have everything in your business, guess what you don't have on your credit report? Debt.
But we don't want to.
No. When I say hide it, the thing is, I own a business, right? When I bought my house, I had no debt. I had at one point in time, I had a lot of cars. I have 0 cars on my credit report. So what does that mean? When Christian's looking at my credit report, I have 0 car debt. And when I say legally hide it, it's a benefit of an entrepreneur, is that if you own a pizzeria, or if you own a car company, or if you own anything for that matter, and you have debt on your personal credit that is tied to your business, one is going to affect your credit, because if you're late, it's going to drop your credit score. But more importantly, when you go to a lender and the debt that you have on your personal credit is for your business, but you're paying it from your personal, from your business, and it's all over the place. Now, the lender has to, all right, which is for business, which is for personal, let me see this bank statement, let me see that. So what I always tell people is, the best thing you could do for yourself is get into the mindset of, how's your money? How's your bank statements? Because guess what? That's all going to determine how you pay your bills. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. So if you have the mindset of, you know what, I'm gonna just buy this, I'm gonna buy that, I don't care about my credit, whatever the case is, let me just pay somebody $5,000, take it off. I promise you in 3 years, you're not only gonna be evicted, but you're gonna be living with somebody else. Because you didn't understand the concept. And I say all the time, I've been doing credit repair for 14, and trust me, celebrities, movie stars, athletes, ain't nobody safe from credit. If you're 80, you still got a credit score. Right. This is not something that goes away when you're 80, 90. Like I think the oldest client I've ever had was like 82 years old. And the son was using his mom to buy the house. I was like, that's it, you're a savage for that. You know what I mean? But the thing is what I say is, if you're gonna buy a car, you know, like if you're gonna buy a car, and if you own a business, put it into the business. If you have credit cards, use the business, because you want to protect your credit as much as you can. You want to build it up to about a 700, 720, right, credit score. And the way you do that is, the quickest thing you could do, I was just telling Darwin before, you have 2 ways to get a good credit score. Either pay off all your debt, and obviously you could delete certain things, dispute. You know, I own a credit repair company, I could delete certain things, but if you got a repossession, you might have to pay that. You understand? And if you owe T-Mobile, we might be able to delete the collection, but you gotta pay them. I always tell people, you know, got credit, because got credit is more than just credit with the credit bureaus. Got credit is more like, how's my credit with Christian? How's my credit with this realtor? Like, if I bought this house and 3 years ago, and Christian's like, you coming back to me, how'd you get all this stuff off your credit? You didn't pay the last mortgage. Oh, I paid this guy $5,000 to leave everything, and now it's like, oh no, I know you're not really gonna pay this, and your reputation precedes you, just like with everything. So what I always tell people is if you want good credit, how quickly can you pay stuff off, and how quickly can you be patient? Because as long as you're patient, and if this is a big purchase, this is obviously going to be the biggest purchase in your life, slow down. Don't be so quick to buy, but be quick to buy. Because at the end of the day, I lived in an apartment. I lived in an apartment with my wife and my daughter. I could have bought something, you know, a long time ago. Because why are you so quick to pay rent in an apartment, but you won't buy a 4-unit and live in one, rent the other 3? Now what are you doing? Generating income. Live there for about 2 or 3 years, and then repeat the process. You know what I mean? So it's all about mindset. It's all about expectations. It's all about leveraging your credit. Because now, if you bought this house right now, you can see Christian and Maria in 2 years. Now you buy a second one. Now you buy a third one. Now you buy a fourth one. What I always say is, if you're 80 years old, at some point in time you should have bought at least 6 or 7 houses. and you should have at least rented out 4 or 5 of them. This is something that I didn't know. I'm 41, so I got a lot of time. I got some catch up to do. I've only bought 2 houses, right? But now the thing is the expectation is I don't need my credit now. I only need to buy a home. You're gonna need it for the rest of your life. So that 3-digit number that they don't teach us in school, make sure that it's the most important 3-digit number. It's more important than a bank account. It's more important than your social, because you are judged and you are criticized by your credit score from no matter where you are, even if you're black, white, gay, straight, Hispanic, doesn't matter what you are. The thing that makes us all equal is a credit score. So as long as you have the principles and the things and the knowledge needed to elevate your credit score to the next level, when you go see Christian, I'm like, yeah, man, here, I got my credit score. My credit is, there's no debt. Because do you check business credit scores? No. So if you own a business, that's when I say legally, you know, we don't want to do anything illegal, because the illegal is the 5,000. When people come to me, hey, how quickly can you fix my credit? I don't know. We're gonna see. Because I'm not going to give you a timeline. I charge you $100 a month. There's people that are in my program for 2 months, and we delete a lot of stuff. They go see. There's other people that have been programmed for 1.5 years. Why? Because they have continual late payments. They're not paying their bills. They're maxing out credit cards. It's the mindset.
Well, they're messing it up while you're fixing it.
They're messing up while I'm fixing it. So what I tell people is, if you need an extra $2,000 a month to pay off your credit cards, go do Uber, go do DoorDash, go do Grubhub, go do Uber Eats, go sell a water bottle at the baseball game. Go do whatever you got to do. Get your real estate license, refer people to Maria, get your mortgage license, get something, because money honestly does make us happy, right? It does solve a lot of problems. But what happens when you get that money? You're going to lose it all. You're going to throw it away because you still got to pay your mortgage. You got the baby coming. You got the tax. You got all this stuff, right? And even though it all starts with credit, it could all end with credit too. All right. So that's my time. I mean, I know we're gonna have some more questions. I'm very passionate about the credit stuff, and I always tell people if you start building business credit, because when you start building business credit and you have an LLC, right? You can shift the debt from your personal to your business, and nobody will ever know that you have 4 or 5 cars, you have credit cards, American Express, all that good stuff.
But one thing I do want to say.
You have a question?
No, I'm just like,
One thing I do want to say with credit is you really do have to be careful. When somebody's promising you way too much for a lot of money, there's only so much that anyone can do. Always be careful with that, because I've heard people pay $5 and nothing happens because they really can't. Once they have your money, they're stuck. They'll just string you along. So you really do have to be careful. When I refer Jose, I know he's going to take care of you, and I know if he can do it, he's going to do it. Or he can, he won't. And that's the huge difference about having the group of people you work with, right? Because when I go in to present my offer, I present it with a worksheet. I give you the attorneys, the home inspection, I give you the appraisal, everybody's contact. I tell you based on the day I offer, if you accept my offer, when you're gonna have I already set up a home inspection. I already set up the appraisal. Everything's done. So that helps to be able to say, you know what, this offer's coming from here, but this agent who really doesn't have too much experience, this one's coming from here with 24 years experience. I'm already setting everything. The expectation is there. Now, obviously, there's things out of our control. You know, if you happen to lose your job, it's going to affect the purchase. If you don't like the home inspection and you can't agree, it's not going to happen. You can always cancel. There are time periods that you will be able to cancel your offer on the home, but once it's passed, the appraisal, and they tie you in and you have clear to close, unless you lose your job, or unless, because obviously if you lose your job, that changes the income.
I had someone quit their job just to get out of it.
Right, and they can. And this is why I tell everybody, be sure you want this responsibility. You can't just cancel for no reason. At some point, this will be your home. Now, in the 24 years I've been doing it, I've only had 2 sellers sue the buyers for their loss of time. And they're entitled to it. So it can happen. It doesn't happen a lot of times, especially in this market, just simply because they can put their house back on. But no seller wants to have their time wasted. You have to know that this is what you want to do. And it's like I said, look, it's your biggest purchase. It's going to be the most emotional purchase you make. So it's important that you pick the right realtor that's going to guide you, help you. And we don't have the emotion you have, right? It's your home. where you can look at things a little bit from a different perspective. I'll always tell, go sleep on it. If you still feel this way tomorrow, then let's do this, right? But I don't ever want to push anybody, because what's the purpose? Some people are good at making quick decisions, others are not.
So I do have a question. We've kind of said or spoke of some things that people may or may not necessarily know what they are. So when we talk about title, like what is title and how important is title? And I think someone said the wife may not be on the mortgage or the deed, but she will or may not be, she may or may not be included in the title search. So what is title when it comes to getting a home?
So title insurance is protection. It's different from homeowners insurance. A lot of people confuse that, right? So title insurance is primarily an insurance that's going to protect your rights on buying this home, right? For example, you want to make sure that the person that owns the home is the person that owns the home. You want to make sure the person that signed for that deed for that purchase was that person that signed the deed for that purchase. There are a lot of fraudulent things going on. There's forgery happening, and that is, especially now in this digital age, you'd be surprised how it's happening even more, especially when you're reporting things in the county. It's digital, so it's getting to a point where you just really have to be careful, and you got to make sure that the person that's doing your title is going to investigate the chain. The chain is people buying homes from like 60 years past. So we do a search on the property. We go back 60 years to see who owned the home. We want to make sure that every person that owned that home, it was that person. Make sure that there's no heirs. Somebody that comes and says, okay, that's my home, and whoever did the job before that didn't pick that up because that was I had rights to that property. My father owned that property, right? We want to make sure that we do everything we need to do to make sure that when you buy this property, you're free and clear. There's no judgments on the property. There's no liens. Nothing that's going to affect your home ownership. Okay, like I don't know who said that. Something about lien, right? Even let's say you fix your credit, but there's a lien, or you fix your credit for $5,000. 3 months later, a lien comes on. What happens? That lien attaches to your house that you bought, and when you decide to sell or refinance, you got to pay that debt off. Okay, and you got to make sure it's not attached to your property, because if it's not attached to you, it will attach your property, just like fraud. IRS, the federal tax liens. Let's say you owe back taxes. What happens? You can't pay your taxes, it's going to attach to your home. So you want to make sure that that's taken care of. That's not a debt that you want to take care of as a new homeowner from the past seller. That does happen. You got to be careful with that as well. So what we do is protect you so that you have free and clear title, meaning there's nothing owed or open on this property, so that you could enjoy your home. All right. And if there's anything that does come up, for example, let's say a company missed it prior to, or I missed it prior to, you have insurance to protect you to go back and say, hey, listen, you missed this. This is not my responsibility. I have, somebody has to pay for this. So that becomes a claim. Right? So that's your protection. Now there's a lender's policy and there's an owner's policy. The lender is also having a policy because they need to protect their financial interest in it. You're taking out a mortgage. God forbid, you don't pay your mortgage. It goes into foreclosure. They need to get protected. Right? And they also need to know who owns the title as well, just like you do, because they want to make sure that things are done right properly. Owner's title, the owner's policy is also for you. It's your protection, stating that it's yours. And if there's anything that should happen, guess what? You have a phone number and an owner's policy. I did title, I have title, and now someone, messed up, and now you have the right to go back to somebody else. Now, it's very different than homeowners insurance, because homeowners insurance is different, and I think that he can speak to you about that. But, and as far as a survey, now there's also a survey done on the property. So the survey is a map of what is the property. We should have had a surveyor here, right? But a surveyor, so they map out your property and tell you what you owe, what you don't owe.
The four corners of your property,
right? And so let's say, for example, you want to build a fence and you don't have a survey, and you want to sit there and build on the other neighbor's fence, and he says, wait, that's my property. That's when you have to get a survey, and we insure those surveys as well, so that's important. Okay. So you have to have a survey because you never know. You want to make sure you know what your property line is, so that if you want to build or renovate or do something, you have that survey to state, hey, this is my property and this is what I own, and these are my means and bounds.
So is a survey required? Is an appraisal required?
So from a mortgage standpoint, anytime the bank is gonna lend you money, we are gonna do an appraisal because we wanna make sure that, well, not we, the company wants to make sure that the money that they're giving you to purchase this home is a smart investment for them, right? Because their investment is, I'm gonna give you $500,000, you're gonna pay me 6.5% for 30 years. So they wanna make sure that what they're lending you is based on the value of the home. Now, can you get an appraisal and your home is worth less than what you offered? Yes. And that's up to you and your, your agent, your attorney, your financial advisors, if that's going to be a good decision for you to make, right? If you're offering $525,000 and the home is only worth $500,000, do you want to try to negotiate for the sellers to come down to $500 because this is what the home is worth? Or are you going to say, well, I really love this home, I want to pay $25,000 more than what it's worth, right? Because at the end of the day, someone's going to go out and say what they think the home's worth, but that $25,000 might be worth it to you to go out and purchase it there. So whenever you're getting a mortgage, you do have to get an appraisal.
So as a mortgage broker, you're not going to necessarily pay the $25,000 that
No.
came over? Okay.
We're now going to do your mortgage based on whatever the appraised value is. So whichever is lower of the two, so the same is correct vice versa. So if you're making an offer for $500,000 and the home appraises for $525,000, we're still using that $500,000. So whichever is the lower of the two between the purchase price and the appraised value, that's what we're going to use in order to do the deal.
Any questions? Yes.
Okay, I'm a senior. I don't want to go into a senior citizen building. I'd like to have a house. I'm $5,000 in debt. I do have a job. I get Social Security. At what age is it realistically for me to buy a house?
Whenever you feel financially comfortable to do so.
That's right.
So who's going to be the one to help me decide it?
All of us.
Do I need to clear my $5,000 in debt first before I come down?
It depends how much you want to pay. So that $5,000 probably comes with a monthly payment. That monthly payment will be tied into your debt ratios. It's one of the numbers that we look at when qualifying you for a mortgage. If you wanted to reduce that number and increase your purchasing power, you could pay it off. It just depends on how much and what the scenario is going to look like, right? So when we look at your credit report and we see that on there, we'll tie that into where you want to purchase, what the estimated taxes are going to be for that area, how much your income is, and we're going to use all of those factors to determine how much you can qualify for. Sometimes people have a $5,000 debt and they have a $500 a month payment, right? If it's going to be paid off within the first year, some programs allow us to remove that debt because after 1 year it will no longer be there anyway. If it's $100 a month, that payment's still going to be there, will include it. So it really just depends on your own personal scenario and what that would look like.
Okay, so now we get through all of that and I get to buy a house. I don't do anything it's as is. I haven't made any repairs or whatever. But then next, they build a luxury apartment building complex like in the area. Is that going to mess with my assessment? Is there any protection from that?
It's possible. There's not necessarily a protection for your assessment. You can appeal assessments at the tax assessor's office. So when somebody does come and do an assessment, you can make an appeal if you wanted to. I've heard of cases, I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard of cases where someone comes in, their taxes were $10,000, now they're $20,000. You could go in and appeal. They'll be able to make some sort of adjustment, or sometimes they'll just say no, right? It's just an appeal process. It's not a guarantee.
So I want to interject. I have a question for him. So suppose my rich uncle says, look, I'll pay that $5,000 for you. Can my rich uncle pay the $5,000? even, and you know that she has $5,000 in debt based on what you've already seen. So can someone come and pay the $5,000 for the debt?
They can, and it's also going to depend on how they're paying. If they're just going to pay it straight from their bank account, that would be the best ideal solution because it has nothing, it now no longer comes from your account, right? But if they're just going to give you the $5,000, now you deposit that into your bank account, now you make that payment, we're going to ask you, okay, what is this $5,000? Where did it come from? You're going to say, well, it came from my rich uncle. And then we're going to say, okay, well, can you ask Uncle Richie Rich, can he give us a gift letter? And depending on the type of mortgage, you might also need a bank statement from him showing so. So it just depends, but it is possible to have some of those.
And the other thing you gotta keep in mind is once you're in the process, once you've had an offer accepted, people do this a lot, right? They go buy the furniture, they go buy the appliances, and we haven't closed on the house yet. You gotta stay. You gotta stay. Don't co-sign for anyone else.
Yeah.
Don't go buy car. Don't do anything different. Don't do anything different. Don't make a big purchase. Stay after the home if that's what you want to do. You do. But it's important not to change. If your income is say $5,000 monthly and you're depositing that, fine. If all of a sudden you deposit $10,000, that's going to change. So always have that conversation. Look, you know, I just got this, I got that. Can I do it? Can I not do it? Right? Then we say yes, no, or let me call Chris. Let's see what's going on with him. Right? So it's best to do that. The other thing, state of New Jersey, you are not required to have an attorney. You're not. It's not by law.
But you should.
You don't need to have me.
So here's the thing. I, regardless of how long I've been doing this, is one thing I never do. I never will close on the house that I buy or any investment properties that I've done, have I done without an attorney. I'm not one. I don't pretend to be one. My other lifetime, maybe. So I don't do that.
But in South Jersey?
You have to, in South Jersey, they do it without attorneys, and I think that's crazy.
It's a wild west.
I think it's crazy.
The title company
It's
in
crazy.
Jersey is the one
It's
that
crazy in
represents
South
the clients,
Jersey.
yeah. Well, they don't
But-
represent.
So the other thing also is the home inspection. While you might waive that on your contract as one of the contingencies to get the home, you should never not pay for it, right? The cost of it is, it varies, right? 600, 800, 1,000. There's a home inspection, there's a sewer inspection now, and you check for oil tanks. I just had one where we found 2, not 1, but 2. So that's a problem, right? Because now if they're not going to do it, then you can back out. But those are the 2 things I say, and home insurance you can't close without, so you have to have that. But those are the 2 things that even though I have done it, I will never do without. It's not where you should be looking to save.
And
Those 2
just in
things.
case you don't use anyone from this panel, something that you could take away is the waivers, right? So there's a home inspection waiver and there's an appraisal waiver. Usually waiver means you're just giving it up, you don't want to do it. In this case, when you're purchasing a home, you're giving up the responsibility of it, right? So you can have a home inspection waiver in your contract, in your offer. That doesn't necessarily mean you don't want to do one. Because ideally you want to do a home inspection because you still want to know what you're getting into when you're purchasing the home. You're just basically saying you don't want the seller to assume responsibility because the guardrail on the staircase has a chip in it, or the paint is coming off and you want them to redo it, right? Things like that. But if it's a safety hazard, environmental, things like that, they would still be responsible for. And the same holds true for an appraisal waiver. So the appraisal waiver, what that means is you don't care how much this house comes in at, you're willing to pay the amount that you offered. There's a full appraisal waiver where you don't care at all. There's a partial appraisal waiver where you're only offering up to a certain amount. Maybe it's $5,000 or $10,000. So if the appraisal is $500,000 and you offered $525,000, if you have a $10,000 appraisal waiver, you're still responsible for $10,000 for that gap between what you offered and what the property appraised for.
So just to chime in, from a legal perspective, that's why it's really important to have a conversation with the lawyer. Once I get the offer accepted, and if you're the buyer and you've waived as part of the negotiation, you've waived the home inspection contingency clause, or you've waived appraisal, I'm gonna have a conversation with you and say, did you speak to your lender? Did they explain to you what this means? And even if they've told you exactly what he said, and what Maria says the same thing, this is why we're waiving the home inspection, this is what it means. I, as your attorney, if you hire me, I'm gonna sit down with you and explain to you in layman's terms what that means. So what he was saying, which could be confused by some people, is if there's a 10%, a $10,000 waiver, right? That means you gotta come to the closing table with those $10,000 in cash. And I wanna say it to you very clearly so you understand. So I have some crazy deals come in front of me where the buyers are waiving home inspection, appraisal, everything. And I say, did your agent tell you what this means?
Right.
Because that's really important, because me as a lawyer, now we're talking about liability. I can be sued. The agent can be sued, but mostly they look to the lawyers to sue the lawyers, because we're the ones with the deep pockets, they think, right? So it's very important for me to not only have the verbal conversation with you, but also have it in simplistic handwriting so that you can understand those terms. And usually I have fights with agents and lenders because they're like, why did you tell the client that? And I said, but they need to clearly understand, because I had a situation where I had they were a husband and wife, they were both mortgage lenders. They were buying a house in Paramus up in Bergen County. And the house, they thought that they waived appraisal and they had to come up with a difference of $200,000 at the closing. Wow. And they had to tap into their 401k. Because they said, I know mortgages, I know that this house is gonna appraise. And they really didn't know. And I told them, and these are my friends, and I said, I'm telling you, and I made them sign a document with me that explained very clearly what a waiver of appraisal was. And guess what? They had to come up with $200,000.
So what she's trying to say is, once we present an offer and it gets accepted by the seller and the realtor, that goes into the attorney. That's attorney review. Mm-hmm. There is usually a couple of days where both attorneys go over the contract, and they can change the stuff we have decided. Mm-hmm. If they sit down with you and you say, well, no, she didn't really explain that to me, mm-hmm. well then, now it changes, right? Yeah. Take it out. And it can fall apart at that point, yeah. Because it has happened. So what I normally do, like I said, I go back to disclosure. You don't want the home inspection? I need you to sign this saying I have advised you should have, but you're choosing not to, right? And more importantly, when we put in this so-called waiving of home inspection, I never make it clear out. It's always structural, it's always environmental. There's always something to protect you, right? While you look at the home and you have a home inspection and you know the roof is at the end of its lifetime, you know it's going to need a new roof, right? But you're okay with that? So that's why that second falls again. The home inspection is always real. They know. I can look at a roof, and for as long as I've been doing it, I'm not going to be able to tell you, right? So even when I purchase my own homes, I need the person that knows what they're doing to tell me. And so I know this roof is going to get, I know the heater, I know the bigger components, right? The air. That's why now by law, the seller has to give you a seller's disclosure. It didn't used to before. And now they have to. And with the homes going as fast as they are, this is a really tough market. Yeah. The inventory is not there. While rates have gone up, they're not at 2, 3, 4% where we were getting 50, 60 offers. We are now getting at least 5 to 10. They're still very competitive. So that's why people waive inspections, waive appraisals. But you have to be aware of what you're waiving, right? And what you need to bring.
The things that you are waiving can affect the home insurance.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like if you waive the inspection, that's one part of the hurdle. Like you secure the loan, but the next part is you need to secure the home. And Maria briefly touched on it earlier, where insurance is a requirement, so people underestimate the importance of insurance on the home closing. It's the last piece of the puzzle in most cases, and you can't close without it in place. And to touch on credit, debt to income ratio, Sometimes credit can affect homeowners insurance premiums significantly, and with DTI, if there's a tight DTI, you need the insurance below a certain premium just to qualify. So those are all factors that come into place with the insurance, and I've literally seen deals fall apart because the insurance didn't work out, or deals were about to fall apart, and then they came to me and we were able to save it because we were able to get the insurance to work out. But as far as securing the home, then the next part, they don't just want you to have it before closing, they also want you to keep it while the mortgage is in place for the next 30 years. So our importance is not just to the closing table, our importance is also long after, as long as you're owning the home and as long as you have the mortgage.
Out of everyone here, you probably speak to your home insurance person more than anyone else.
Right. Well, what does it protect? What does home insurance protect?
So I was gonna say, so really quick, as far as the inspection, so you waive inspection, you're fine, you get to the closing, you're good to go. That waiving of the inspection before your closing doesn't waive the inspection that's mandatory for the homeowner's insurance from the carrier after the closing. Literally, so you got past that one hurdle, but now what do you do when you got the home and the insurance company did an inspection and they said, we're not okay with this, and that, you need to fix it or we're canceling you. And then you say, okay, then I'm gonna go to the next company. The next company sends out an inspector, they say you need to fix it or we're canceling you. Then you go to the next one, then you go to surplus line, somebody who's willing to accept the homeowner's insurance, but at $10,000 for the year, and they will exclude the roof and they'll keep you in place, but they're not covering the roof and they're charging you top dollar because that's your only way to keep insurance in place. So you thought you dodged a bullet on the front end, but then it's going to become an issue later.
There's also a technical.
Trees are an issue.
Flood insurance.
See, I'm
After,
just
after,
serious.
the flood insurance also,
just
because
cross your eyes, dot your T's.
after the
Or
last
cross
storm
your
that we
T's, dot
had,
your I's.
a lot of other areas that were not flood insured, now they're flood zone.
So-
Right,
But
FEMA
just
changed
to
that.
not drive you away from it, right? I guess what we're all trying to tell you is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? And if you're not gonna pay it somewhere, if you're not gonna pay it on the front end, you're gonna pay it on the back end,
Yeah.
right? If you're gonna pay $5,000 to delete things off your credit, they're gonna come back in a title judgment search, right? And then you're still gonna have to pay that back. If you're gonna waive the home inspection, you're not gonna be able to get the home insurance, and you're still gonna have to pay a higher premium on the back end, right? So you really have to pick and choose what you're gonna do. If you wanted to get, with me for example, if you wanna get the state grant, we can offer you up to $22,000. That's gonna help you purchase the home now. But on the back end, you're paying a higher interest rate. So there's always a give and a take, and it's just a matter of what's gonna fit your situation the best, and what's gonna make it more affordable for you, and what works best for you. And that's what ideally we are here to help you figure out.
Just know what
So
you're
with
in.
this panel, who do I see first?
This-
Money.
Or even the financial
And
advisor. So
I also
speak
did
to your
want to
question,
go
right?
back.
Well, you can speak to
A lot.
Yeah, so
See him first.
to speak to your question.
But now you see the importance of sitting down with the potential buyer, right? Because if you've come to me first and you don't have a pre-approval, I'm going to try to help you understand the process, but you will have to speak to me. Now, he runs the paperwork and sees that your credit is not where it needs to be. Now we need to bring in Jose. So it all goes back to having that conversation. And I always say this, if you're too busy to have that conversation with me, then I'm probably not the right individual for you. Because I really would like for you to understand the process. I do want you to look at the forms. I want you to sign them. I need you to look at the contract when we're not trying to rush and put it in, because now they have a deadline all of a sudden by 10 in the morning, right? So all that needs to be, for me, that's how it works. It's better. If you don't have the time, it used to be we met in the office before COVID came. We did Zoom, we do phone, right? And now it could be anywhere, really. But if you don't have the time to sit down and have this conversation with me, where I can help you figure out where you are, right? And get you to the right person, then that's why I say I don't call and jump out and start showing you homes. I've never done that. It's never been my thing. I know some realtors do. And then after they show 5, 6 homes, they go to sit down and they go, oh, you have this, you have that. Well, yeah, that should have been done prior.
I agree with that sentiment completely, because I have, one thing that I'm very keen on is insisting on speaking to the client. So most of my business comes from referrals, and I've had a lot of like lenders or realtors that will be like, can you just run the quote? I'm like, no, it's in the client's best interest for me to speak with them directly, even with the 1003 and appraisal. I need to know the eligibility factors that exist. I need to know that they understand how they're covered. I need to know what type of dogs they have in their personal situations. Those things are important, because you know what? There are a lot of, like Maria said, there's a lot of insurance agents that don't. There's a lot of insurance agents that just with your name, date, and birth and address, they'll send you a home quote, the price looks good, you jump into it, but then something happens later and you're not covered for something that wasn't disclosed on that conversation because you didn't really get into it. So with us, we do like to have that thorough discovery. We like to educate the client. When it comes to, as far as having options, we work with multiple carriers, so it puts us in a good situation to not just get you a low rate, but also get you a low rate with really good coverage. And then we'll reverse engineer. There are agents out there that make assumptions on coverage. They want to keep the price low to win your business and not explain all the things that are excluded. I literally will work the opposite way. I will literally cover you the way I will protect myself, and then choose the best rate and tell you all of the things I added to the policy that weren't there on the base rate, and let you decide for yourself, are these things I want to sacrifice? Do I want to increase that deductible? Do I want to remove that endorsement for water backup that you assumed was covered anyways, but it's not unless you endorsed it to the policy? So it should be the client's decision on how they're covered. If they are price focused, that's fine. You tell me what you want to change on the policy to get the price lower, and I'll tell you all the things you can change.
So I do have a question. So can I get, for our viewers at home, this is going to be taped, it's going to go to our public TV station. So if I could get each person one by one to stand up and say who you are and what you do, and I may have a question for you, and just say them to the camera so that they know who's here.
So
if you want to put your email address or telephone, you do that as well.
So quickly before that, we talk about dogs, right? So is it any other pets like boa constrictors or
exotic,
lion, exotic
so
pets? You know what I'm saying?
We have
alligators.
Yeah. So since we have like so many carriers, we have a carrier comparison, which is like a resource where you can go and see what carriers are okay with what type of risks. So there's specifically a list for dog breeds, and there's specifically a list for exotic animals.
Okay.
So the two separate categories. And there are carriers that will accept them and carriers that won't, but that just narrows down your options to make sure that you're placed with a company that will cover you with that exposure there. Because sometimes you cannot expose it and you think you got away with one, but then something happens and you try to put in a claim, and it could be something unrelated to that factor. And something happens and they deny the claim altogether because you misrepresented on an application. So it is very important to mention those things and make sure you're placed with a carrier that's okay with those things.
Number one, you would stand up, say your name, how we contact you, and what you do.
Sure. Sonia Garcia, do I speak to him? Is it an edit? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Sonia Garcia, Phoenix Title Agency. You can contact me at my office phone, 973-601-2600, or via email, sonia@phoenixtitleagency.net.
Now, what does title insurance do?
Title insurance protects you from your financial assets. So being that, for example, if you're, like I said before, if you're buying your home, you want to make sure that you're protected. You want to make sure that you legally own the home outright and there's no one else trying to take the property.
No judgments, no liens against your property?
No liens, nothing, no IRS, no child support. That's also another issue. If there's child support owed, that's something that can also affect you. And forgery, let's say for example, somebody forged a deed. Let's say for example, somebody else, let's say a deed wasn't recorded prior to you buying this home. Then what happens is, guess what? That other person that's selling the house doesn't technically own the home because that deed wasn't recorded, so now you gotta go back to the other person. And that happens, and what happens with that? A claim comes up. Because now the person that's selling all this time thought they owned the home, and that's happened, and the deed wasn't recorded over the mortgage. So then we have an issue. So, and those are things that come up, and you wanna make sure that you have full, complete rights to your property and that it is fully yours without any issues. This is a one-time purchase, and also it's a one-time purchase for yourself for 30 years to make sure that you are comfortable and that all your legal rights, are all the way, your I's dotted and your T's crossed, because you want to make sure that you never have to worry about somebody knocking on your door saying you don't own this property.
My name is Al Rush. I am a chartered financial consultant. You can reach me at 973-822-3774. My extension is 223. Today I'm here as a person to speak on the topic of life insurance, especially when you're involved in buying a house. When you buy a house, you are creating a large debt. You're also creating a lifestyle for your family. And life insurance guarantees that if something happens to the people who are responsible for paying that debt, that debt can be immediately paid off, or you can use the life insurance benefits to generate income to maintain the family's standard of living. My name is Al, last name is Rush, and you can reach me at alrush.com. Thank you.
So, my name is Christian Soto. I'm a Vice President of Mortgage Lending at Guaranteed Rate. I am the mortgage lender, so I look over your income, your assets, and your credit to determine the eligibility of a mortgage to secure a home purchase. My phone number is 718-290-3436, and my email is christian.soto@rate.com.
Why is it we're likely to see you first?
So you would come to see me first because you need to be pre-approved to get an idea as to what you can afford before you go out to shop for what you're looking to get. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Salazar. I am with Signature Realty NJ. I've been a broker for 20 years now, 24 years. And I work with sellers, buyers, investors. I am able to facilitate from the property search to closing day. And that is with both sellers and buyers, investors also. Thank you. Oh, my number is 973-641-4021. My email is msalazar524@yahoo.com.
So how do you get paid?
At the closing, prior
How
to
do you
that.
calculate the fee?
The commissions,
Yeah.
they're all negotiable. So it's, that's the key. And now, because the commissions are no longer posted on our MLS, it's negotiable with the buyer, negotiable with the seller.
So the commission is you get paid a percentage of
A
the
percentage of the sale at the end. And it's not, we could go 2-3 months. If we don't close, we don't get paid. Thank you.
If you could, Chris, respond, how do you get paid?
I get paid from the mortgage company that secured your loan. I get paid a percentage from the company.
Doesn't get paid by the person
No.
buying and selling.
I get paid.
Well, my name is Mohammed Kandil. I'm one of the agency owners with Goosehead Insurance, the Kandil Hindi agency in Mountain Lakes, New Jersey. We are an insurance broker. We work with multiple insurance companies, and we basically are like a matchmaker between the client and the company. So we take every client's individual needs into consideration and find the best carrier to fit their needs. By doing so, we get them the most bang for their buck, so the best coverage for the best rate. We work with home, auto, commercial, renters, watercraft, high net worth homes, pretty much everything but health and title, I'd say. My direct work line is 973-384-1445. My email, mohammed.kandil@goosehead.com, so mohamed.kandil.
If I'm buying a house, do I pay my insurance premium for the entire year up front at the closing?
So that's not an us thing, that's a loan thing. The mortgage company is going to require that it's paid up front for the year. We can secure the rate on the home without a payment and have it invoiced to be paid as part of the closing costs. If the lender requires it to be paid prior to the closing, we can go back in there and take the payment. But it doesn't have to be made at the end of the phone call as far as we're concerned. We can have it billed and paid at closing.
Is it one payment that keeps me for the entire 30 years?
One payment for the year, and then you get that renewal, and then the renewal can always go up or down, usually up. But that's a good thing about being with the broker, is we hope to be your agent for life. So if something drastic changes in your rate, you come right back to me. We'll make sure you're still kept in the best situation.
So I can change rates as I need to?
Yeah, so I would not recommend to shop frequently, like just because your renewal's up, don't go shopping around, because everybody has an insurance score, which is like a credit score, but for insurance. And one of those things that come into consideration is how often you shop. Carriers like to see loyalty. So don't shop often just for sake of shopping. Have a valid reason to do so, but you always can, as long as you know.
Is it a sign of a conscientious and good insurance broker that you will tell me when there are better deals out there without me having to do so?
Not necessarily, because like I said, I wouldn't promote you to affect your insurance score and shop regularly. I would say it's your responsibility to, one, maintain the same coverage, and two, only look into shopping if something drastic happened to your rate.
Good afternoon, Carolina Curbello, residential real estate attorney. I'm, I guess, the individual that brings all these people together. I'm the one that's the most liable, but I'm pretty much connected. I'm the one that explains the entire process to you from a legal perspective, advises you. Once the agent gives me the offer, accepted offer, I'm the one that will connect with the title company to run a title search, reach out to the mortgage lender to make sure that you're working with your lender so we can get to the closing table, make sure that you are working with a broker to get that homeowner's insurance. You've spoken to your financial advisor to make sure that you have enough money, or you're using the right, if you're going to use your 401k to contribute to the closing costs. If you have any issues with credit, definitely will refer you to a credit individual, or if you need life insurance when we talk about estate planning. But definitely, I'm the one that brings everybody together, and I work closely with title at the end to make sure that the closing happens. So,
when do you start working for me if I'm going to buy a house?
Once you sign a retainer. So I have a conversation first with the client once I get the offer, the accepted offer, what my rate is. If I were doing an hourly, some lawyers do an hourly rate.
It's called a retainer.
Oh, representation agreement. Yeah, retainer. So it's an agreement between myself as the attorney and you, the client. Okay, that's our agreement. That's going to navigate our relationship going forward. So once that's signed, some lawyers may choose an hourly rate to charge you. Others, majority, I would say in New Jersey, charge a flat fee rate to representation. It usually either gets paid at the closing, either by the client directly or from at the closing table through the title company. Okay.
When I have problems with my credit, my mortgage broker says I have a problem with my credit. Is it your job to help me clean that up?
No, I'm going to refer you to a credit individual.
If there's a judgment, some litigation,
Yes.
usually goes into court to try to clear it up for me?
No, so I'm very clear in my representation agreement what I do and I don't do. So if you have a bankruptcy issue, if you have a tax issue, I will refer you to a tax lawyer, or if not a bankruptcy attorney. I'm not a zoning attorney, so if you have a zoning issue, I'm going to tell you very clearly in my agreement what I can or cannot do. So I have to be very clear on what my skill set is as an attorney. So I try not to wear multiple hats. And I can tell that very clearly to my clients, that I am only representing you on this particular transaction and nothing else.
When is the representation over?
At the conclusion of the closing, and then usually at that time, it's usually stated in my agreement as well.
How much are fees typically?
I cannot. Typically there's a range. It depends on each county because each lawyers are different. But they're, I would say maybe between like 1,100 to 2,000. I would say I've seen that, like a sliding scale. I mean, lawyers won't disclose, like you can't because of the antitrust laws. We can't collude or say, hey, we're all going to charge X amount. So it really depends on the years of experience of the attorney, how many transactions they've done, and something that you should really ask when you're hiring an attorney: how many residential real estate transactions have you done in this particular town, or how familiar are you in this county? Or how experienced are you in, dealing with, septic tanks or, solar panels? Or a situation where, if you're the seller and you're short selling, do you have experience with short sales? Do you have experience more with sellers or buyers? It's really important to ask those questions because real estate's one of those areas, especially in the law, where you have a lot of newer attorneys jumping in because they think it's really easy to do. Also, when people, when there's times of recessions, other lawyers will use real estate law as another area to pick up business, and they're not experienced in the field. So it's really important to ask that attorney, how many transactions have you done? And I want a list of referrals, clients that you have represented, and I think you should really do that.
Who gives me my deed ultimately?
The deed will be recorded at the county, and it's usually sent by the title company directly to me, the attorney. And I will hand that over to the client. Either the client can pick it up, or I will priority mail it or certified mail it, depending on the client's preference.
And what's the deed?
The deed is basically the legal document that establishes you own the property. So, you're welcome.
How you doing? My name is Jose Rodriguez. I own a company called Got Credit, and pretty much I help you if you have any credit challenges, but also don't just look at me when you do have credit challenges, because I could also help you with using your credit to help you make money. They usually have something called generational wealth. I usually teach people something called generational credit, which is teaching you how to build credit from multiple generations down. So that way when your kids graduate high school at 18, they already have an 800 credit score. But if you are buying a house and you do have those negative items on your credit, me and my team can help you out. We do charge $100 a month, and we do help you with credit repair, business credit, coaching, how to start an LLC, how to pretty much build a business credit. So that way when you do buy a home, not only is your credit good, but you also have some reserves and some money in the bank in case something does come up. You do have those extra reserves or the extra cash to help you get there. The best way to contact me, honestly, is Instagram, at The Credit Dude. The reason being is because I put my life on there. So I want to show you my wife, I want to show you my daughter, I want to show you where I go, I want to show you what I do, and also want to show you, more importantly, what I do with my credit to give you inspiration so you can do it on your own. Because there's so many people out here that does credit repair, you don't know who you're dealing with. You're not dealing with somebody in a closet, or in a cave. You're dealing with a human being. I'm a veteran, so I want you to I want you to know, like, and trust me before you sign with us to fix your credit. Because yes, buying a home is an important decision, but you're also giving me your social. You're giving me a lot of important information. So I want you to know who you're giving it to, so that way you can trust me and know that we're not just going to be working for a month or two. We're going to be pretty much working for the next 5 to 6 years. So that way you can not only buy your first home, but you buy your third, fourth, and fifth home, start a business, and then teach it to your kids.
Do you go to court and get stuff cleared off my credit for me?
No, what we do is we actually have a power of attorney that all of our clients sign, and we dispute on your behalf. So we don't actually hide it from the credit bureaus, all the creditors. We actually let them know that, hey, Got Credit is actually doing everything for them. The great thing is, we don't really go to court. We dispute everything via mail or online or through the CFPB or the Better Business Bureau on behalf of the client. But if there is this instance where a client does need to go to court, we actually are partners with Legal Shield. So we actually do recommend Legal Shield that clients can get. And if they do need legal representation for a judgment, a tax lien, or a wage garnishment, the attorneys in the network with Legal Shield will actually do everything for them.
Can you have any quick fixes so I can just get my credit score up to 800 and get my house?
So 800, what I would say is realistically is time. What I would say is that one of the biggest things that I see people do is their credit card debt. So there's 2 dates on your credit. There's 2 dates when it comes to paying your credit cards. There's the due date and the statement date. If you want to keep your credit score as high as possible, do not pay your credit cards on the due date. Pay it 3 days before the statement date. What this does is it allows you to legally hide the credit card debt, okay? And pretty much the credit card companies are only going to report what's on the statement. So if your statement is July 16th, but your due date, let's say, is August 3rd, you want to pay it July 13th, because what's going to get reported to the credit bureaus is what is on July 16th. So even if you have a $1,000 credit card and you use all $1,000, but you pay it zero on July 13th, it reports July 16th, and then July 18th, you use $1,000 again, it doesn't matter. It's only going to show zero. And when Christian sees your credit report, it's only going to show zero. The other thing you can do if you have a late payment, just call your credit card companies up. Call your mortgage company up. Call your auto loan, especially if it was in the last 12 months. Do not say, I'm trying to go for a house. Say, say, hey, listen, I had loss of income. I've been with your company for X amount of years. I love you guys. I'm not going anywhere else. But, you know, I did have a late payment. I want to see if there's anything you could do to give me a courtesy adjustment for one late payment removal. That can increase your credit score anywhere between 80 to 90 points. So between the combination of getting that late payment off and paying your credit cards off before the statement date, that can shoot your credit score up and you might not even need me. So, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Darwin Roman with Arc Wealth Financial Solutions. We're a full-service financial planning firm, so we help our clients with regards to financial planning now for the future, mid to long-term financial goals, retirement planning, and everything in between. The way to reach me is on my cell phone directly, 908-590-1653. My personal email is the best, actually, so I'll give you that, darwinroman908@gmail.com.
Are you a stockbroker? How do you tell me how to spend my money?
Great. So we have two platforms. We do have the insurance platform and also our broker dealer. So our broker dealer services include whether it be day trading for you, opening up mutual funds, IRAs, and also any rolling over old retirement plans. And also in our conversation earlier with regards to somebody passing away, we help the surviving beneficiaries roll over assets from deceased.
Can you help me with child support?
No.
And I wanted to say to you, sir, too, about like one of your last questions that you asked, like, would we encourage somebody to reshop insurance? And the market today is part of why I wanted to like go back and actually address you about it.
Yeah, can you stand up for that? I think that's an important point that we don't
Yeah,
know.
so we are in the worst insurance market we've seen in almost 50 years right now. So that has not just come with every insurance company filing for rate increase, but it's also come with them updating their eligibility guidelines and becoming a lot more picky on inspections, like things like roof age, missing shingles, leaks. So if I were to warrant you to shop your insurance because your rate went up when your company wasn't dropping you, and we switch you to a new company, and then you got dropped from that company because the inspectors went and they were a lot pickier this time around than they were the first time around, then I put you in a very bad situation. If anything, in this market, people who want to reshop, I'm actually swaying them away from it unless it's like a significant increase and the home is in pristine condition. So I also wouldn't want to be the catalyst to putting you in a worse situation by propositioning a reshop.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much for this panel today. I hope that y'all will come back. I hope that you will stick around a little while and talk to a couple of people that are here. I really learned a lot of new things myself today, especially about credit and life insurance and dual agencies and homeowners insurance and just everything again. It was really interesting, really exciting, and I'm glad that Noel Chap is here to videotape it. It's gonna, as the mayor said, it is gonna be broadcasted on YouTube TV for Orange, but also on our community access channel, which a lot of people watch. But I just want to again say thank you so much for not thinking of Robert to come out on a Saturday, cold Saturday morning to the city of Orange Township and talk to our residents and the people. Thank y'all so much for showing up and stay around and stick around and talk to these people. These are people that we know, that I trust, and they'll take good care of you. So once again, thank you for coming to the city of Orange Township. Really appreciate it. I want to thank Mayor Warren for stopping by. I know he has a busy, crazy schedule on a Saturday, but I just want to say thank you to him